shaping up to be quite different. It's getting a bit like Formula One as far as we're getting different chassis and different engine combinations, which I feel makes it a bit more interesting.
One of the great buzzes for me was getting together with AJ Foyt. I felt a bit sorry for the fact that he couldn't drive the car. His injuries are still too bad to do that. But he did get in a car and do a couple of laps to help a mate out.
Yeah, I mean, the guy could hardly walk. I mean, he virtually had to be lifted in and out of the car, but his friend had to start that race to achieve a certain amount of prize money and stay as a franchise. So AJ said, all right, well, listen, you get it to the grid and I'll drive the thing for a couple of laps. So he's that sort of a guy.
Only the big, tall Texan AJ Foyt. Well, let's have a talk to AJ now. His thoughts on Formula One, his thoughts on motor racing in general. Here's the great man.
What must be going through this man's mind?
That's pretty nice, AJ.
He said he'll retire this year. Perhaps not. Only AJ knows.
AJ Foyt is as American as apple pie and college gridiron football. From the time he first sat in a car, he felt at home. The legend began in the 50s. Like Mario Andretti, AJ would drive any place in any car just to compete. Foyt first conquered the small dirt tracks in midgets, the oval tracks in sedans we now know as NASCAR racing. But if there was one arena that was to become his kingdom, it was the famous Brickyard Oval they call the Indianapolis Speedway.
I think you got to be a little bit brave, and also, especially in the older cars, but the cars you have today, the technology, they're so much more comfortable to run at 200 miles an hour was than the cars did at 140 miles an hour. It's unbelievable. I'm just glad that I've been able to last this long to feel the difference in all the cars. And you still got to be brave a little bit. I mean, it's nothing's ever give to you.
4 times AJ has won this grueling race. The Indy 500 has given AJ godlike status, but it's also been the well for some very deep lows. AJ lost many friends.
But before the race was 2 laps old, Dave McDonald skidded into the northwest inside retaining wall. Eddie Sachs came up from behind and hit McDonald. Both cars exploded on impact. The race was red flag. Sachs and McDonald died in the accident.
It's awful hard for me to be sitting here like talking to you, and maybe 5 minutes later he's gone. So I kind of stayed off to my own and was kind of friends with people, but never really got close to anybody.
Victory has been snatched from his grasp through no fault of his own. This crash moved Foyt so much he almost quit the sport.
I would have retired in '66 if it wouldn't have been for a lot of the news and press. You've won it. Why continue? And kept pushing me. Because after that, every time a car wiggled, because anytime anybody had a crash, it blew up and caught fire. I would have to say coming back after '66 and then come back with a banner year in '67 was probably, I pushed myself to drive a race car more then than I've ever have since. Because I'll be truthful with you, I was scared. And I'm not too proud to admit it.
AJ has a marvellous sixth sense of what's going on around him, out in front, or round the next curve.
I had a funny feeling. I don't know why. I was up with that group of cars, and I said, look, there's nobody close to me. I think I had a lap on the field. I just backed off. It's just like I knew something was going to happen. And because there was a group of cars right behind, I come off before, I could not believe cars spinning every which way. I said, here, I've got to get to that start-finish line. I'll never forget I made a couple of zigzags, and I lost them in the smoke, and that, you know, I knew I went between cars. I dropped it to second gear, and I said, whoever I hit, I'm going to hit them hard enough that I drive them past the finish line. I did have that in my mind.
The death of AJ's father left him in a void. His dad had always been there to help and advise. AJ was still recovering from that shock when this accident smashed his feet and legs to pulp. Not many understood when AJ told them his daddy had pulled him through yet again.
Well, you know, I hate to talk about things that sound crazy like that, but I felt like he was right beside me, and I actually talked to him, and it could have been the medicine they had me on or something, but it seemed like that he come there, he said, you're hurt bad, but you will make it back and things like that, and it was so real that it's just like he was there.
Although AJ felt America had to be his race base, he also went to Le Mans and beat the Europeans fair and square when he won the classic 24-hour sports car event driving an American Ford.
Being the first American and American team to win over there really meant a lot to me. And also, like I won Indy the month before that, or a couple weeks. Yeah. And 2 big major victories like that all within a month, that was really something.
Has AJ got the fire in the belly? Is the desire still there to win?
I would say the desire's there. I'm going to run probably Phoenix and Indianapolis. I'm more or less semi-retired last year. I didn't never make an announcement like a lot of people said, you know, my final tour on the deal. I'll probably go back to Indy. I'm feeling a lot better, and I'm just going to play it race by race, but this will probably be my final year because we do have another young boy that we're going to run over here, and it's possible I might even try to run the second car.
One of the great pleasures of doing a job like ours is to get to talk to the legendary people. I found him a fascinating character, and when I said to him a highlight and he mentioned Le Mans, that really stung me a bit. I was quite surprised about that.
Yeah, well, it was very big in America at that stage. I mean, the Americans were absolutely desperate to win Le Mans, and Ford really threw everything at them. I think they took over about 10 GT40s and 400 utes and trucks and lots of personnel. And AJ was one of the guys that was in the right car at the right time. But to win the Indianapolis and Le Mans within a month, not a bad effort.
But, you know, Andretti, Mario Andretti and AJ Foyt, I mean, Sir Jack Brabham, they are sort of legendary figures, and he fitted into the surface mould so well. I mean, he really enjoyed himself out here, and he endeared himself to everybody. Well,
he whacked the old Akubra hat on, you know, sort of became an instant Aussie. He's a really likeable sort of a guy, and really a big legend in America. I mean, I don't think there's anybody in America that doesn't know AJ Foyt.
All right, from AJ, let's go to Phoenix and his beloved Indy cars. The coverage tonight coming from ABC America. Here we go.
On the pole, it's Michael Andretti, the defending IndyCar champ, scoring the first pole for Ford Cosworth since June of 1988. Alongside is Bobby Rahal, the winner here at Phoenix in 1984, now with a brand new team. In the second row, it's Mario Andretti, a 3-time winner on the Phoenix Mile. And Emerson Fittipaldi, the winner of the Australian race 2 weeks ago. Row number 3 on the inside is John Andretti. He's driving a backup car due to a hard crash on Friday. And Paul Tracy, a 23-year-old, the 3rd driver for the Penske team. In the 4th row, it's Danny Sullivan with the Gallus-Craco team for this year. And Rick Mears, his worst start on a 1-mile oval since 1984. In the 5th row, Scott Goodyear, the Canadian, making his 3rd start here at Phoenix. And Scott Brayton, who led this event for 11 laps 4 years ago. In row number 6, it's Al Unser Jr., 3 times a runner-up here, looking for his first win. And Scott Pruitt, the True Sports entry with Chevy power this season. In row 7, Jim Vassar, a graduate from the Toyota Atlantic Series. And Eddie Cheever, finished in the top 10 in both previous Phoenix starts. In the 8th row, it's Tony Bentonhausen, his 8th race here. And Hiro Matsushita, recovering from a broken leg suffered in Australia. The 9th row is Buddy Lazier, a 3rd-year driver out of Vail, Colorado. And Fabrizio Barbazza, the Italian who finished 3rd in his rookie try at Indy in 1987. The 10th row, Eric Bachelard, the 1991 Indy Lights champ. And Jovi Marcello, a Philippine driver making his 2nd career Indy start. In the 11th row, it's Dennis Vitolo, a Florida driver making his 6th IndyCar start. Outside, substituting for AJ Foyt, is George Snyder, a 51-year-old veteran making his first IndyCar start since 1987. Up until the start of the race, the crowd hides in the shadow of the grandstand, but now they're beginning to move out toward their seats, ready for the start of this race. It's coming up. Latecomers are making it into the parking lot, but on the track, we are set to go racing. The 2nd race of the season. Let's go down trackside.
On behalf of Buddy Job, owner of this great racing facility, Valvoline Motor Oil, and the Agajanian family, let's get these boys cranked up. Gentlemen, start your engines!
Come up. Number of different sounds this year. Each engine with its own distinctive challenge. John Andretti sets ready to go, as does the rest of the field. Michael on the pole. The cars in their rows of 2 behind the PPG pace cars, already beginning to roll away, at least for Bobby Rahal, but Michael sits still for the moment. And they have not started that engine. That's why he's sitting there, and they give him a little bump start, and the engine fires that way. So Michael Andretti finally is underway. One of the great onboard camera shots you're going to see this year. Another one over the shoulder of Scott Pruitt. And with balloons flying up on the backstretch, you'll catch a view of them here. Aerial bombs going off, celebrating the rollout of the engines. There are the balloons. A festival of colors as we are ready to race. Brand new cars, some marvelous equipment, new technology, some of the greatest drivers in the world. 80-degree temperatures, very light humidity in the forecast. As usual in Phoenix, is sunny throughout the day, though they've had some very heavy rains here earlier in the week. The race 200 times around this 1-mile oval. Arie Luyendyk, the defending champion, is not racing here today. Phoenix, actually a Scottsdale resident, he is watching as a spectator in the stands. And we have a surprise as Michael Andretti has pulled off of the line of the course and down into the track, into his pit area. Let's go to Jack.
And Paul, this is not good news. He radioed in after the engine started that it was only firing on 7 cylinders. So the crew has removed the bonnet. Obviously, they are extremely disappointed. They have yet to even take the green flag. They're going to have to go to work on this Ford Cosworth XB.
Michael Andretti with a remarkable accomplishment. That is last year's Lola that he opted to drive here. It has the new Ford Cosworth XB in it. And he thought that this would be a very dependable combination. It certainly was in qualifying.
This could easily be a foul spark plug, Paul. Often they have to warm the engines in the morning. They're not allowed to go around the racetrack with them. So there could be a change of a spark plug. Maybe they'll get back in before it goes green.
But this is the sort of penalty that you pay when you do development work on an engine in racing itself. Tough break for him so soon.
They say that it's the black box, part of the management system on the car, right, Jack Arute?
Yes, Paul, that's in fact what they are attempting to change right now. Above the plenum on the engine, you can see one of the crew members making the work right now. And that is what they think the problem is. But this is obviously a disappointment. As soon as the engine fired, Michael radioed into his crew that he only had 7 cylinders. Back to you.
Well, behind now the single PPG pace car, the field moves around. Look at this, 1 mile an hour every year from 140 for you, Bobby. And Michael Andretti through the 170-mile-an-hour barrier this year.
They've come a long ways, Paul. Just so that people know that about the only thing you can change fast on a racing engine is the whole electronics. That's the black box you were talking about. They can do that very fast.
As they are on the pace lap, another car with a problem. That's Hiro Matsushita, as he's off the edge of the course, and that brings up the question, will they go green then on this lap as scheduled? If the car is in peril, they can't safely go green, and that might play into the hands of Michael Andretti. And it appears that's exactly what's going to happen. They are going to hold for yet another lap while they get Matsushita off the race course. And in doing so, that gives a little more time to Michael.
Yes, it does. It's an advantage for Michael that way. But remember, it's going to upset the game plans for everybody because fuel is always a big factor. The engines are setting, turning 12, 13,000 RPM for the entire race. And anything that means an extra lap is additional fuel usage that they have to have, Paul.
So the field now lined up with a single car in the front row, that of Bobby Rahal. The cowling is still off the back of Michael Andretti's car. The rest of the field nicely pulled up. There's Michael Andretti. You can see them slaving over that engine behind him. The only good news is that it was running such a short period of time. It's not very hot, and it should be a little bit easier to work on. And the indication now from the officials is that they will go green in 1/2 a mile. That is at the conclusion of this lap as they work their way on the backside of this D-shaped 1-mile track in Phoenix.
And you can bet that every driver in this field is changing his game plan slightly because the fastest man is now out of the race. At least he's not going to be able to take the start, and that's going to change everybody's idea of how hard to run hard soon.
And of course, one of the cars to watch on the start will be that of Rick Mears as he starts back for the first time in a very long time on a mile oval and will have to thread his way up through the field. And Nick Finaro, the starter, says no good. I won't accept this start. Gives him the yellow flag. and they will have to slow down once again. Again, advantage goes to Michael Andretti.
Yes, and, you know, Bobby Rahal came down for the start, and he jumped out quite a bit in the lead, but you really can't blame Bobby. He has nobody to run against. He can't drive by the cars in the back. He's in a row all by himself up front. He would probably rather have Michael there to help him start the race.
Well, exactly, and he's not going to wait for the men in the second row. You know, Mashusta here is probably just as happy he's had problems with his car because his left leg is broken below his knee in an accident 2 weeks ago in Australia, and I talked to him yesterday. It's giving him incredible pain.
Very
Japanese driver,
man,
of course.
He tried to drive in that race after they worked on his leg, and then he finally said, no, this hurts too much, which was a very wise decision. Now they're lined up again off the fourth turn. Will we get a green this time? We do, and they're underway in the Valvoline 200 at Phoenix as Bobby Rahal screams into the lead. Rahal with a nice jump on the start there. Fittipaldi drops in behind, then Mario Andretti.
Now keep in mind, Paul, there's been a lot of other racing this morning. He's going to have to be just a little bit careful. Everybody is, because it's got different types of rubber compounds on the racetrack.
In a race which is going to see the debut of new cars, or rather the American debut of new cars and engines, Rahal has a conservative setup. You see John Andretti making an exciting outside pass on Paul Tracy.
Boy, John Andretti with a terrific maneuver. That's Paul Tracy, the 7 car, down to the inside. 3rd car in the Penske team. And now his teammate Rick Mears comes up to overhaul him. If Paul is smart, he'll just play it very careful, and he is there as he comes way off the line and lets these other cars through.
He's using good judgment. Everybody looks at him because he's driving for Roger Penske. That's the 3rd Roger Penske car, and of course, being a rookie, everybody points fingers pretty hard.
A lot of the balloons from the ceremony still drifting onto the track, especially on the backstretch as another car slowing down.
I don't think they put enough helium in those balloons, do you?
No, they're certainly not going up in the air far enough.
Paul Tracy has been testing and testing and testing through the winter and spring. You see him here in the blue and white car, but he has not driven the car that he is driving here very much.
The car slowing down was number 14, A.J. Foyt's car, driven by George Snyder, and car number 1, Michael Andretti, is underway on the 3rd lap. So he has a good 3 miles. By the time he gets up to speed, more than that to make up. Michael's pit stop took 5 minutes and 48 seconds. And now Fittipaldi closes on Bobby Rahal in a fight at the front of the field. The lineup is Rahal, Fittipaldi, Mario Andretti, Rick Mears in 4th now, John Andretti in 5th, Paul Tracy is 6th, Scott Brayton 7th. In 8th is Danny Sullivan, 9th Scott Pruitt, and Al Unser Jr. now 10th.
Paul, especially as fast as the Ford engines have been running here at Phoenix, everybody was thinking that Michael was by far going to be the favorite for winning this race. It's going to become now a test on the Ford, for the Ford engine. They need the miles on it before Indianapolis, before Long Beach next week. So they're definitely going to have a lot of advantages by staying in the race. Not trying to win the race at the moment, though.
This is an exciting battle for the lead. Rahal might not have expected to be leading this early. He might, in the back of his mind, figured that he was going to be tagging along after Michael Andretti. Instead, he's setting the pace, and Emerson Fittipaldi right now is letting him. Already, they are starting to lap slower traffic. Rahal, remember, founded this new team with the help of Carl Hogan, a veteran car owner, and right away is able to lead a race. Pretty good winter's work, I'd say.
That was Jovi Marcello, the Philippine driver that they just went around, the black car number 50. Boy, I can guarantee you that he is getting a real education at this moment, probably wondering, I'm driving this thing as fast as I can, and here come the leaders. And look at Rick Mears as he comes up to do battle with Mario Andretti in a fight for 3rd place. Mears now challenging at the back. We said that we thought he might move up early, and Rick is certainly answering that challenge.
Mario carried it right down into the number 1 turn, deeper than Rick went. Rick had the advantage on the inside. I really thought Rick would pass him then, but Rick is probably one of the smartest oval track races I've ever seen, and he used good judgment and sucking out at the last second, Paul.
Rick, with an unusual approach on that corner, just decides to wait Mario out another lap.
The point is that Rick's setup of his car is very good, it appears, for this race. Remember last year he had the pole position but quickly fell back as far as 5th and was almost lapped. Now he seems to, he started back, of course, in 8th, but he has the combination and he's moving up on Mario Andretti, who started 3rd. Rick Mears, I'd say, is one of the fastest cars on the track right now.
Well, in the final shakedown practice yesterday, assuming you're on full tanks as well, Rick Mears was at 170 miles an hour and the fastest car in the field. He continues to challenge Mario now, and now they have slower traffic to help out.
Now he's got to be really careful. Passing on the outside of Phoenix is very tough. Right, you can see how Mario can just keep moving over and get Rick squeezed out into the wall. Right here.
Well, look at this as Rick cycles around the outside of Mario.
Off of turn 2. It's about the only place you can really do it here at Phoenix, Paul. And Rick had been laying him up for that a couple of laps before that.
The Penske cars now run 2nd, 3rd, and 6th. Fittipaldi in 2nd, Rick Mears in 3rd, and Paul Tracy runs in 6th place. But the position that matters, number 1, that's Bobby Rahal at the moment, who, with the advantage of Michael Andretti being gone, took the lead right from the start and is holding on strong. We'll be back with more of the Valvoline 200 after this message and a word from our ABC stations. 200 at Phoenix. The yellow flag is out. It came out 2 laps ago on lap number 15 because the 19 car, Eric Bachelard, seemed to have an engine let go at the back of the car, though they are still working on the Dale Coyne entry here.
Bachelard, an orphan essentially from a very early age. His dad died when he was 11. His mom, when just 2 years later. He is a self-made man from Belgium. I think he's Belgium. He's got a very great future in this sport. He learned to speak English. He's a tough guy.
Well, Bobby, whatever it is in the engine, it doesn't appear terminal because they continue working on the car. Let's go down, though, to Jack Arute first. Jack?
Well, let's go back before the drop of the green flag. Remember, we had 2 additional caution laps? Well, Bobby Rahal's crew, along with Jim McGee, have begun the petitioning process to get IndyCar officials to give everybody on pit road some additional fuel to compensate for those 2 additional laps. No word yet, but the IndyCar officials say they are considering the request.
Well, that would be a significant act if they did it. They've done it a couple of times in the past. They did run 2 laps under the yellow that they weren't anticipating, and there seems to be an argument afoot sometimes as to whether or not those slower laps are actually more or less efficient, Bobby.
Well, it's always a question, Paula, whose fault and who caused the yellow laps, and that's what the officials decide. But fuel is always a very important thing at Phoenix, so the mechanics know that.
Boy, don't you love this shot, looking straight head-on into Scott Pruitt's helmet. And that's the steering wheel that you see moving just below there, another new onboard camera position.
Much was expected of Scott this year. You see Al Unser Jr. there. Pruitt has a new Chevrolet engine. Thought the car would be very competitive here. Instead, he qualified midfield.
Green flag comes out on lap number 18. And we are back to racing as once again Bobby Rahal figured it out and really stood on the gas, and that put the Penske team, Emerson Fittipaldi and Rick Mears, in direct confrontation. And Mears was able to come around Fittipaldi, and now Mears runs in 2nd place, so he's carved his way up through the field.
Now you notice Rick did the same thing right there with Evo as he did before that. He's been playing with that high groove, and coming off of turn 2, that's the only place on this track that you can really pass on the outside if you're running near the same speed. The penalty, Paul, is the guy on the inside crowding you into the wall.
Bobby Rahal leads it. Many feel that Rahal, with a tried and tested combination under him, may be a silent shoe-in for the World Championship of the IndyCars when this season is over.
Don't underestimate the effect of not getting the pole on Rick Mears yesterday. He was an angry man, and he's converted some of that anger, I think, into his brilliant showing now. He's the fastest car on the track. He's going to attack Bobby Rahal very shortly, and I suspect make quick work of him.
There's Bobby Rahal. Gives you an idea as we look down on his entry into the first turn at how far ahead he has been able to pull, and look at how close he comes to that wall. Boy, that's a great view of it.
Oh, it really is. That's a beautiful shot, but it also is a way to tell how the cars are really handling, where they're sticking, what their grooves are. And we'll watch. Rick Mears will be very soon right into the picture frame too, because Rick is pulling up a little bit on Bobby. Now remember, it's early in the race. There's 2 guys that are masters at oval work. Rick Mears is probably the most experienced. He's not going to press things too hard this early.
Ongoing battle between John Andretti and Paul Tracy. It's a fight for 5th. The bright yellow car, that's John Andretti. And John Andretti Andretti has radioed into his crew that occasionally the car is bottoming. That means that it's not riding as high above the ground as they would like. Look at they split. Hiro Matsushita and Tracy sees the opportunity, and Tracy moves into 5th place, passing John Andretti.
Well, that's a deal where you really hope the guy in the middle doesn't make any too radical moves, because either way he went, he could have hurt somebody pretty bad right there, Paul.
And if you notice, just behind these two cars, here comes Paul Tracy through, and working his way up, though he has quite a bit of distance to make up, Michael Andretti is coming up through the field now as well.
I talked to Paul Tracy yesterday. You see him here in the blue and white car, number 7. He is a brilliant young driver, still without the on-track experience that he needs. And this is a very tough race. A lot of passing, high and low. He's going to have to pass slower cars, but possibly be passed by faster ones. He knows he's got his hands full for this race, but it means a lot for him to finish, because he's not entered in the race at Long Beach next week, and he really wants to make a good showing here to impress the Penske team and get more rides during the year.
While Michael Andretti tries to carve his way up through the field, he runs 18th, 4 laps behind the leaders. And on board, there is Michael Andretti. You saw, too, Rick Mears is now beginning to close down on Bobby Rahal, the leader. Let's get an update on what's going on in Rick Mears' pit from Gary Gerald.
Well, Rick has indicated on the radio to the crew that the car is handling just a bit loose, but that's nothing new for Mears. We know him as the master of the ovals. He loves this setup. He's being very, very effective at this point. Fittipaldi says his car is perfectly beautiful, so both of those Penske drivers, 2nd and 3rd, very happy in the early stages.
And Rick Mears is now climbing all over the back end of Bobby Rahal's car, and he moves past Rahal, but Rahal answers the challenge as Rick gets bottled up. Rahal back to the front of the field. Very dangerous racing when they're in close quarters like that. Now they have clear running ahead of them. Rahal maintains 1st place. Rick Mears in 2nd. Fittipaldi now has to get around the slower car.
Now that's what makes Phoenix so good right there. Is right, golly, when the cars catch each other, they hit the traffic. That's when you see the best racing. Bobby Rahal did a masterful job right there. He really had a problem coping with both Mears behind him and the guy in front of him.
Mario Andretti, he runs in 4th place right now. Jack, you have an update on him.
Well, actually, I have an update, Paul, on Michael Andretti. They have resolved the problem with the engine, but Michael is totally depressed about the day, he says, because the chassis is working so well, and now the engine is working well. But as you said, he's 5 laps down.
But Michael has a long race ahead of him, and of course, as you bring cautions out for accident or debris, there is always an opportunity for Michael to close up each time, and by the end of this race he could be right back on the lead lap and running with the leaders. On board with Scott Brayton, runs currently in 8th place, as 31 miles of this 200-mile run are now complete, and Bobby Rahal, except for one little challenge out of Rick Mears, has been the leader all the way. It's a whirlwind as these cars circulate around this track. 37 laps are now complete, and Bobby Rahal, the leader, finds himself embroiled in a battle, lapping his way up through the field. Now, right now, you can see the 2nd place car of Rick Mears as he is lined up just behind the number 10 car of Scott Pruitt, and he is about to put Scott Pruitt a lap down. Already a lap down, surprisingly, is Al Unser Jr. and Scott Goodyear and Danny Sullivan. That's how fast Bobby Rahal is carving his way through the field. You look from on board Scott Pruitt's car. The interval 1st to 2nd is now right at 3 seconds. Bobby Rahal leads it. Rick Mears runs in 2nd. Fittipaldi is 3rd. Mario Andretti is 4th. And Paul Tracy is 5th.
First place, people have to realize Phoenix is a 1-mile oval, and these cars get around here 170 miles an hour. It used to be very difficult for us to achieve 170 down the straightaways. Today they're averaging 170. So you can understand how, like little Al and Scott Pruitt, and those guys are getting lapped so quick. If they're off just a little bit, their history as far as getting lapped right away, Paul.
Rick Mears comes around back traffic. Fabrizio Barbazza as he continues his pursuit of Bobby Rahal. Bobby Unser, what does that mean to the driver? I mean, is Rick on the brakes here? Is he ever slowing down? Is he just going around as fast as he can?
He actually shouldn't be touching his brakes at all, with the exception of traffic. And like through turn 1 and 2, he runs, never backs off the gas all the way, about half the throttle off. Through turns 3 and 4, he'll come off maybe a quart of a throttle because he's full of fuel and because the track's so slippery, and that's all, Paul. In the race, he'll sit there and run 100
well. Of course, is Rick Mears, for all this, is actually dropping back. He made his attack on Ray Hall, essentially passed him momentarily, but now seems to have lost some of that fighting edge.
Well, in fact, he's fallen back quite a bit. Just as we've been watching him there, he's fallen back from 3 seconds behind Ray Hall now to 6 seconds behind.
But just remember, Rick Mears, historically, every race he'll start with a car very loose. That means the rear end is loose. He'll adjust it during the pit stops, and later on, he'll be tough.
Battle now for 6th place. John Andretti trying to hold off Eddie Cheever. In Eddie Cheever's car, another one of those brand new Ford Cosworth XP engines.
The co-owner of John Andretti's car, Count Rudy van der Straten, is ill. We wish him the best. His car is running beautifully right now.
By the way, Eric Bachelard is back into the fight. They said that an oil cap came off of that car. Once it was properly replaced, a little oil in the car, he's back into the fight. Boy, look at Eddie Cheever as he works at the back of John Andretti. Tight racing. No room for errors here.
And then you can, this is a good place to compare engines. John Andretti in the older type Chevrolet type engine, Eddie Cheever in the new Ford engine. There's horsepower against horsepower right there. And Paul, I'd have to say the Fords really are looking good right now.
Boy, look at that though, as John Andretti stays wheel to wheel with him all the way through the first corner. Take a look at that.
But that's handling. That's the driver doing the job that he's paid to do right there.
Whoa. And one car moving slow, and they really had to duck down to keep from slapping into the back of that car. Unfortunately, up in the high line.
It's a fast groove in the track, a terrible place for somebody to slow down. Of course, he could have blown an engine or something while he was up there and couldn't get down.
The yellow flag comes out because of it. The other thing is the way they're circling this track, there's very little chance for you to get down out of the way. There's Danny Sullivan. And he is running in 14th place as Rick Mears in 2nd. Takes advantage of the yellow. So does his teammate Emerson Fittipaldi. So both Penske cars come in under this yellow flag, which occurs at the 47th lap or the 47th mile. Of course, and Bobby Rahal comes cycling past Rick Mears as he pulls out. There goes Fittipaldi away. So the leader of the race, there he is. Bobby Rahal in. 4 tires in the change and full fuel.
That's too bad. He came in too late, too slow. Rick Mears is out, and it's gonna hurt Bobby an awful lot. He's gonna have some distance to make up now.
Well, the IndyCar officials, that's the 30 car. That was a car we saw slowing down Fabrizio Barbazza in the Frank Archero entry. The IndyCar officials, and they are now IndyCar because they've changed the name over the winter. No longer is it CART, it is IndyCar. They have changed. There are decided finally that they are going to give 1.2 gallons of fuel to every car because of the yellow flags on the start. So they'll go down and add that fuel to each of the fuel tanks in the pits.
You know, people are probably laughing. They say they gave them 1.2 gallons. Hey, that's no big deal. But boy, I'll tell you what, it takes about a gallon to run every 2 laps here. That's a big deal, Paul.
Hey, how many times have we seen the difference of what's in that clear plastic hose as they refuel Michael Andretti make the difference between winning and losing in one of these races? Michael Andretti on his way back out. So is Scott Pruitt as we continue under our 3rd yellow of the day. So still no major contact with the wall. A very safe race in the Valvoline 200. You want to buy some souvenirs? How about from Skipper Bill Mears, the Mears gang? Get some great T-shirts there. Colors and a new name, the Goodyear Blimp Eagle from Los Angeles has been providing the aerial shots today. The pilot, Tom Matzes, from Huntington Beach, California. There's that shot of the 1 mile oval as the pace car begins now to pick up the speed. Scott Pruitt and Jim Vassar. You see Scott, the officials have both said that both those 2 drivers are going to get stop and go penalties for passing under the yellow. An interesting lineup behind the pace car as Rick Mears and Emerson Fittipaldi, because of their stops, end up on the track in front of the leader, Bobby Rahal. And so they will have some distance to go if they're going to catch up.
What happened, Paul? You see Bobby Rahal right there. There's Mario Andretti right alongside of him. And the reason Rahal was leading the race and now he's back kind of in the middle of the pack was because he came in at a lap later than the other guys. He's really going to hurt him now because he's got a lot of traffic to work with.
Some of the cars were able to chock the brakes real hard and get into the pits right away as soon as the yellow came out. And Michael Andretti lined up there as well.
That's the luck of the draw. Rahal did didn't have much choice when the yellow came out, and he missed it just by probably 25 yards.
There's the stop and go for Scott Pruitt.
That was a stop-and-go penalty for theoretically passing under the yellow, according to the officials.
So as Scott Pruitt comes back up to speed, the lineup now, as drivers are trying to get laps back, is Ray Hall with Eddie Cheever in second place and Scott Brayton in third. Reminds you of several years ago when Scott Brayton didn't stop on an early stop, and in doing so was able to lead a good portion of the race. Now let's go down to Jack Arute.
Well, Paul, just what you and Bobby were discussing is exactly what happened to Bobby Rahal. With all the computerization that they have, Lady Luck frowned on them. He was beyond the pit-in when the caution came out. They radioed to him, but they also knew that Rick Mears and Emerson Fittipaldi were just entering turn number 3. So they were able to get onto pit road. Rahal had to circle all the way around. But the report from him is they made no changes on the car, and they are in good shape. They are very happy with the balance in the car right now.
So there is a time in IndyCar racing when you can actually go too fast and carry yourself a little too far. Bobby Rahal, brand new team, along with Carl Hogan. He's an owner and an operator here.
And the bad thing about Phoenix is the traffic. You know, the traffic is so hard to work. As we've been watching as this race progresses, it makes it bad for Rahal, because when you're out front, you're running in clean air, and you don't get traffic until you're lapping the guys, it certainly is advantageous.
Jim McGee got a shot of him there, monitoring the Rahal team, and there you see the 1.2 gallons of fuel going into the tank. And I think what you just heard is a driver's point of view, Sam, from Bobby Unser. The bad thing about Phoenix is the traffic. I don't know, as a fan, I love the traffic.
I drove here too. I agree with Bobby. It is very unnerving on a track that where the groove is really very narrow to have to make outside passes, especially on the less experienced drivers. That's one of the toughest things in racing, and it happens right here.
And you guys got big bucks to be unnerved. An update on the Penske pit. Let's go to Gary Gerald.
Well, the stop for Rick Mears, even though it was under yellow, was terrific at 12.87. They took out the right front wing, meaning they're changing the handle on the car. Emerson's pit stop, 13.7, 4 tires fuel, no changes to the balance of the race car.
That means Rick thought he had too much oversteer. He'll have a little bit less with less front wing, pinning the nose of the car down and making the tail pivot out around it.
You show you how those guys can change those things so fast. Look at the right front wing on John Andretti's car, anybody's car there. That right front guy changed that wing as he ran by it. He didn't even stop and look at it, Paul. Now that is speed.
Michael and Mario Andretti involved in a nice fight with the leader of the race, though not a fight for position. But Michael Andretti is now only 3 laps down because he did get around Rahal. And of course, in the same area, we're watching John Andretti, who is actually fighting for position on the leader lap. John Andretti running in 6th place, and he is trying not to go a lap down. The lineup at the moment, Bobby Rahal, followed by Eddie Cheever, then Scott Brayton. Rick Mears is 4th, Emerson Fittipaldi. Rick's teammate is 5th, John Andretti 6th. Mario Andretti runs in 7th place.
The point is that Rahal has a very solid lead over Mears and Fittipaldi, which are his main rivals at this point. Cheever and Brayton, actually running 2nd and 3rd, did not demonstrate great speed. So Rahal is playing it a little cagey here with the 2 Andrettis, but it's pretty thick going.
Boy, did you see them maneuver back and forth there?
I did. I thought he was playing it conservatively, and then I saw that, and I'm not so sure.
And just behind Rahal, you might from time to time get a glimpse of Eddie Cheever. He is now beginning to close down on Rahal. He was about 2 seconds behind on the last pass across the start-finish line. Now he's 1.3 seconds.
You would think Rahal has nothing to gain and everything to lose by dicing it up with the Andrettis. Why not let him go? It shows you, though, how important it is to him and how tough-minded he is about keeping them on the same lap. In fact, you can see him now from Michael's car. You can see him try to make a bid to get back a lap ahead of Mario. And you see, when that bid failed, look at how much momentum Rahal lost, because Michael was able to come up and almost pass him going into 3.
Well, Michael comes to the outside in a continuing challenge of Bobby Rahal and gets 1 lap back, though he still has some distance to go. Mario Andretti is still on the leader lap and will continue to fight to keep Bobby Rahal behind him. The 2nd place, well, here comes Rahal fighting again with Michael.
Well, those cars were 3 abreast coming off the turn 2 there for a while. It just shows you game planning at Phoenix is probably harder and more important than any track that we run at all year.
There's Rahal just ahead of Michael now. Do you believe how close they come to the walls here?
Wow, look at this, an outside pass. Very dangerous stuff, and it didn't work out. Rahal is really hanging tough in here. He does not want the Andretti's, either of them, to unlap themselves, even one lap in the case of Michael, who's 3 back, or allow Mario to get back on the same lap. That shows you how much Rahal thinks about the Andretti's.
Across the line, 4 abreast as Rahal gets around Mario and puts him a lap down. Michael stays in contact, though. Boy, they are crowding up these corners.
Well, there's no doubt about it. Rahal has served notice to everybody, and certainly to the Andretti's, that he's going to be tough all day. He's here to win a race.
Jovi Marcelo, the Philippine driver, in his second IndyCar race, in for a stop. Let's go down pit side again in Jackaroo.
Well, Paul, let's tell you a little bit of how Eddie Cheever moved into second place. They reported early on that the car had a terrible push or an understeer. So when he pitted that last sequence, they made a wing adjustment, loosened the car up to his liking, and now he's able to drive it much better. One of the reasons why Eddie Cheever may be doing so well here, part of the brain trust, is this man, the man that helped Arie Luyendyk win here last year, Mo Nunn.
Morris Nunn, great engineer, a lot of Formula One background, solid guy, keeps track of this former Formula One driver, Eddie Cheever.
He is without doubt, I think, one of the sharpest engineers I've ever known. I've worked with Mo quite a bit. He came from Formula One, used to be with Teddy Yip from Hong Kong. Extremely good, and he was also with Emerson Fittipaldi when he was driving for Pat Patrick.
That's some great information there in that driver's summary that you just saw. Walter Brolin, with some of his computer magic, is allowing us to keep even better update on individual drivers in their running position than we have been able to in the past, including a number of good full field summaries. We hope to give you those just as often as we can.
A lot of pressure on Eddie Cheever here in the red car, just on the right of your screen. Veteran of Formula One, he was never able to win. He raced for years and years. He's making a bid here on Paul Tracy. He got shut down. Now this year he's got the new Ford engine, a lot of hopes behind him. As Bobby said, Mo Nunn in his pits. But Eddie Cheever is a man who has yet to perform to expectation. And a driver can only go 2 or 3 years like that, and he starts to fall back in racing, not move up. Eddie Cheever, a lot of pressure on him in 1992.
He's also a guy that's driving for another race driver, Chip Ganassi. So he's not going to be able to loaf too long with Chip around.
So Bobby Rahal out in front with Eddie Cheever 5 seconds back as the yellow flag comes out. Reported some debris on the racetrack, and that will close the field up again. But for the moment, it will slow down this whirlwind with 73 miles of the 200-mile scheduled distance already complete. And Bobby Rahal is showing some power that he hasn't had for a couple of years. This new team is definitely working for him. You want some more souvenirs? Those 4 cars represent A.J. Foyt's 4 Indy 500 wins. We'll be back after this message and a word from our ABC stations. Flag just came out at Phoenix as Bobby Rahal hit the throttle and accelerated with Eddie Cheever now trying to work his way through traffic and chase him from second place. By the way, Cheever has never run in the top 5 on an oval, and here he's in second place right now. Rick Mears runs third. His teammate Emerson Fittipaldi is 4th. And in 5th place, Scott Brayton. You're on board with that machine right now.
We are seeing a great drive by Scott Brayton, who last year languished really in the middle of the field with very few exceptional drive. He did, as you said, Paul, have a great drive in the late 1980s here. He seems to have recaptured that today.
And a good move on the pit stop under yellow. He ducked into the pits, taking advantage of the yellow, and did not lose a lap. Let's get an update on Scott Brayton. Here's Gary.
And Dick Simon and this team are elated, Paul. Remember, his best career finish, 5th place at Portland a few years ago. They came in, they added some front wing, 2 turns up front. They want a little more stick at the nose of that car, but they're really excited in this pit right now as they watch Scott Brayton wheel around this oval.
There's Dick Simon, the car owner, as he talks with Scott Brayton on the two-way radio. Hard to believe that a driver can talk while he is so busy on a track like this, Bobby.
Well, the way it really happens is they don't want to be talked to in the turns. The faster drivers kind of have a rule: don't talk to me in the turns unless it's an emergency, and they talk in the straightaway. And you can talk. You can take your thumb and push down a talk button in the straightaway, and that's all they really have to do. But to do it in the turns, in Phoenix is really difficult.
Boy, look at Eddie Cheever as he comes outside of Scott Goodyear in his continued pursuit of Bobby Rahal. And coming up just behind him now is Rick Mears. So a battle for second place, I was about to say, should be developing shortly, and here it is.
Yeah, so remember now, we're going to see the new Ford against the new Chevrolet. Rick Mears has the new, both the small light one that we talked about earlier. Both of these engines are the latest that there is in the entire world.
And just ahead, that's Mario Andretti. He is a lap behind the race now, running in 7th place. As Eddie Cheever closes up on him. By the way, that yellow flag was a real blessing for both Mears and Fittipaldi, because they were able to catch back up to the field. They caught up considerably.
But you can see how significant it was vis-a-vis Rahal's battle with the two Andrettis. They would each have made up a lap. Mario, for example, would be running on the lead lap right now. But for Rahal's tough-mindedness, he kept him behind him, and now he's reaping the benefits.
The second-place driver, Eddie Cheever, can be a very expressive fellow. He always has great answers for journalist questions. He's also pretty expressive on the racetrack. This was a few laps ago when he was trying to get around Paul Tracy.
Well, of course, he feels that Tracy is a rookie here, and that's true. Tracy is having his first race at Phoenix.
And there goes Rick Mears past Cheever and picks up second place, and Emerson Fittipaldi now lines up.
A terrific move now. Both Penske men are feeling very strong at this point, and they've moved from about 13, 14 seconds back of Rahal up to 7 to 8 seconds back of Rahal. So right at this point, the Penske team is again on the march. You recall that they did that earlier in the race, got up as far as Rahal, actually briefly passed, and then fell way back.
You know what? I just wanted to say something about Eddie Cheevers and all that shaking. He really wasn't talking to the car in front of him. He's talking sign language to the starter. So the starter would theoretically give Paul Tracy a move-over flag.
Which, again, is merely an advisory flag. Please, Paul, would you move over? Now Rick Mears, and look at this as Cheever comes back around Mears. Again, traffic a bit of a factor, but boy, we've got a great battle for second place. And Eddie Cheever is really holding off. A tremendous charge from the Penske team.
We're still only 87, almost 90 laps, or almost halfway into the race. Rick Mears, still the cagiest of all on this oval, especially here at Phoenix. So we'll have to see how he handles this.
And watch as Rick really pulled to the inside there to come around Tony Bettenhausen's car. I thought for a moment something was wrong because it looked like he pulled off the line.
Well, you and I both raged up. We both thought that he slipped. Maybe they were in or slipping on the car, but here's that he's all right, Paul.
So Rick Mears back pursuing Eddie Cheever. He was right there in contest with him, passed him for a point, and then Eddie Cheever caught fire and took right off and moved back solidly into second place. But the news there is that this battle for second place between Cheever, Mears, and Fittipaldi is now 9 seconds behind the leader of the race, Bobby Rahal.
And another thing, keep in mind, right here, the two Penske cars, the two Marlboro cars, the red and white cars right there, there is no game plan for these guys. There is no such thing as number 1 and number 2 driver. They are out there on their own, dog eat dog, do the best they can for each other.
By the way, speaking of team efforts and that sort of thing, so common to Formula One, Nigel Mansell ran away with yet another Formula One race today in Brazil. Well, Bobby Rahal is out in front here. Other winners of the weekend here, Adrian Fernandez won in the Indy Lights earlier today. And Bob Gardner in the Shelby Can-Am cars, which were here, and they were terrific.
Surprise is Eddie Cheever, who without doubt is doing the best job of anybody here today. We've never seen Eddie do this good on an oval.
Next Saturday at 3, the Pro Bowlers Tour will be shooting for their second major of the year at the BPAA US Open. And then on ABC's Wide World of Sports, world record long jumper Mike Powell is part of an elite field challenging for the right to go to the finals of the Jeep Superstars. Plus, real horsepower will be on the track as the road to the Kentucky Derby continues with the Bluegrass Stakes presented by Kawasaki. That's all next Saturday here on ABC Sports.
And there's Roger Penske looking over his two cars running right together. Remember, Roger is working with Rick, not Emerson Fittipaldi, and he doesn't call the shots on what Emo's going to do. Only what Rick Mears does, of course, unless Rick dropped out of the race for some reason.
There's Bobby Rahal, the leader of the race. Second place, Eddie Cheever, 9 seconds back, trying to make up ground. Rick Mears is just a little bit back from Cheever. That challenge that Rick mounted against Cheever a while ago totally gone away.
As Cheever makes this lap, heads into turn 1, the banking here is about 9 degrees. You ease out of the throttle a little, use the brake against the throttle. Now he's full out, going back along the dog leg into 3 and 4, which is taken now flat out if the car is handling well. 4 lateral G's as you go through this turn. You have to be really well braced in the cockpit. That's Jimmy Vasser, a young rookie who I think is going to make a big hit. He's a man who's very easy to get to know. He shakes your hand, looks you right in the eye. I think he's going to do well with sponsors, and he's going to do well down in the cockpit, too.
His car owner, Jim Hayhoe, a guy that used to be involved in racing many years ago. Used to be a good car owner, and Jim Vasser was noticed by Rick Gallus last year. Rick says, hey, this is going to be a good rookie, and Rick is helping out. That's his car.
Car carrying the name Stars and Stripes, good reason. Another owner on the car, Dennis Conner of America's Cup fame. And I'll tell you what, Jimmy Vasser is one very, very sharp little driver. Eddie Cheever, as he works his way around the 47 Stars and Stripes machine. Let's go down and get an update from Gary Gerald.
And Paul, we're in the Jim Vasser pit, and Jim Hayhoe, the tall man with a blue cap and a headset and sunglasses, watching intently. Mike Hull, the crew chief, on the last stop. They took a little wing out, but their goal is to just finish this race in one piece. And they're delighted that he's doing a good job mid-pack while all this other furious racing goes on around this 1 mile oval. Vasser is off to a very impressive start.
And Scott Goodyear. Oh, this is too bad. Brand new sponsor, yellow, comes out. VP on the car now. This is the Derek Walker team this year. Remember the former team manager from Penske, then to Porsche, now has his own team here, and Scott Goodyear is driving for him. Well, Bobby Rahal with the yellow out for Scott Goodyear continues his lead here. In second place is Eddie Cheever. In third place is Rick Mears. As the leader of the race, Rahal decides this is a time to stop on the 99th lap, just before the halfway point. Here's Jack Arute.
Paul, they're not making any changes this time. The last time in, they made a 5-pound tire pressure adjustment. That's how well this car is operating.
13.2 seconds in and out. I'd say the team is working pretty well. Rick Mears, who was running in third place, as he is in and out of the Penske pits.
You notice the way the front wings of those cars droop down slightly. That's called a cathedral wing. If they droop up a little bit, bend up a little, it's a dihedral wing. The cathedral wings are new this year. They, in IndyCar racing, derived a bit from Formula One.
I've heard it called an anhedral wing, too, Sam. Is that also applicable?
I believe it's a synonym.
All right, here is Emerson Fittipaldi as he makes his stop. Same sort of front wings on the car. In and out of the Penske pits.
So see the wings there drooping down a little bit.
Out. Yep. So now under the yellow for Scott Brayton, our Scott Goodyear's blowing engine. We reach the halfway point, and Bobby Rahal is still in front. Phoenix International, the Valvoline 200 as the green comes out again. A very short yellow once again. And Bobby Rahal continues his lead. In second place now, though, is Scott Brayton. Eddie Cheever runs in third as the result of that yellow coming out. And Scott Brayton now has his eyes set on Bobby Rahal just up the track. Right in front of him, though, as he goes around, is Tony Bettenhausen.
Bobby Rahal in that last yellow pitted so quick, Paul. Some of the cars that were running back in the pack were able to gain back some lost distance they had because he pitted before they were packed up to the car.
Eddie Cheever goes after Brayton, goes down on the inside, and Cheever comes back to second place. At the same time, Fittipaldi and Mears close in.
Now, they did some adjustments to Cheever's wings when he was in the pits. They gave him a little bit more front wing. In other words, he was pushing a little bit, so they tightened up the front end. So Eddie may be even faster than he was a little while ago.
And there you see Rick Mears and Fittipaldi both got past the Brayton car as well. You saw him come by in that onboard camera shot, and now Rick Mears is closing up to battle with Cheever, and Fittipaldi is there too. Mears tries the inside, sweeps to the outside, tries to use some traffic to go around. That's Eric Bachelard down low in the 19 car as Mears is beginning to fight with Cheever, and Fittipaldi closes.
The distinction here is that Brayton let the Penske cars go by. Cheever will not. He's going to battle him.
Eddie Cheever is really hot today. We just...
Whoa!
Boy, you can see
him get loose out against the wall there.
He was drifting so hard he had to give that steering wheel a hard jerk to keep it on the racetrack. That's a dangerous place coming off the turn 2 wall right over there.
But Rick Mears is an absolute master. The 7th place car, the other Penske car, Paul Tracy's going to get a stop-and-go penalty for passing under the yellow. That's going to be very costly to him. Mears continues to chase Cheever.
Now he's got to pass Eddie hard. We're past the halfway point. Rick knows that he's got to start using everything he's got now. And this man, Eddie Cheever, who has literally never really been fast on an oval track, is red hot today. And look at Rick.
And the reason Rick has to dispose of Cheever fast is that Rahal is almost 4 seconds ahead of it. They're getting to the point of the race where Rick can't afford to let this battle take too long. He has to get by and get on out after Rahal.
108 miles of the 200-mile scheduled distance. Go back just a few laps in Rick's pursuit of Eddie Cheever. Now watch as Rick really has to twist away from that wall. Boy, for a second there, if you would have extended that line up to the wall, wow.
And part of that's aerodynamics. You got to remember that they're probably running 150 miles an hour right there. The air really makes a difference to the cars. These are aerodynamic cars.
But that black and gold car, Bobby Rahal, now has a 3.5-second lead over Eddie Cheever. Only 5 cars remain on the leader lap. Rahal, Cheever, Rick Mears, Fittipaldi, Scott Brayton. As John Andretti challenges Al Unser Jr. This is a battle for 7th place. Little Al, there's his onboard camera shot. He's using that brace to help hold his head and helmet upright. This is a car, the new Galmer chassis, that they are really fighting with at this track. It performed pretty well in the road race at Australia, but here they've really been struggling.
Well, they have 2 cars here, Little Al's and Danny Sullivan's. They have 1 set of new wings that could be made. They were good wings. Only 1 set could be made for this race. To show you the drivers equal, they flipped a coin. Little Al lost.
Not so sure he lost. Little Al's sitting there in 7th place. Sullivan's running in 14th right now.
Bobby, where were you when that coin flip took place with your double-headed coin?
Well, I would have used it. That's right, Sam. I'd have used my old double-headed coin for sure. That's the time for it.
So Bobby Rahal is in front. And Mario Andretti begins to slow down. Mario Andretti just shut it down, coming down the front stretch.
All right, this is the first failure in a Ford car. We don't know that it's a failure of the Ford engine, of course.
Now that was a good sportsmanship thing that Mario did. He physically, instead of staying on the track, pulled off.
Now take a look at that. That's the new Lola. Look how low the back end of that car can be, and that's because of that new Ford Cosworth XP engine. It can be so much smaller, they just slim up the back end of the car. I'll tell you where that's going to pay off, Bobby, at the Indianapolis 500.
Oh, for sure. At Indianapolis and at the Michigan 500, Paul. Both places.
Of course, most of the teams know that this track is definitely, there's the new engine. Tiny little thing when you consider how much horsepower it's developing. Look at the dimensions on that thing.
Those engines are probably pulling a good 760 horsepower. Now, the manufacturers won't tell us how much they have. The dyno tests are all super secretive, but they're pulling a good 760 horsepower, Paul.
There's the 21 car, Buddy Lazier, into the pits. Obviously a serious problem there as well. But what about Mario Andretti? Jack Arute, do you have an update?
Yes, Paul, I do, and it's not a good report. All through the course of the race, Mario Andretti has been battling a loose condition. Well, he just couldn't handle it much longer because added to the loose condition, he lost 5th gear. Now, as Bobby and Sam can tell you, on an oval, you have a choice of 5th and 6th gear. But that 6th gear just made it so difficult for him that finally they just gave up the ghost.
Wow, that's unlike Mario. Jack, wouldn't you say that is astonishing that he would quit with a car that was still running? The point, of course, is...
Sam, it's not that he quit while it was still running. Once he lost that 5th gear, they weren't able to work the engine as hard in the 6th gear, and that's when the engine quit.
I understand.
See, he's had another problem with what he's had, and what Jack was saying, Sam, is that the 5th gear, he needed that for his high RPM to really get that thing going good. 6 was like the overdrive to save fuel.
I got to tell you, I'm very disappointed with that because I really expected Mario with the new car to do very well here. That was, though, a hope against hope because you can't expect a new car to do very well. Now, we watch Rick Mears. He's driving a car with a new engine as well this season. We asked him if, as a driver, he can feel the difference between this car and cars that he's driven in the past.
Oh, yes, very much so. And on the street circuits, being able to put the power down a little bit better coming off the corners. It seems to be better under braking, as far as, braking for the tight corners on the street circuits. Just grip in general through the middle of the corner and balance, seems to be a touch better. We seem to be better aerodynamically. We see the, you see the straight line speeds around an oval. Less drag, probably with a little more downforce. So you can definitely pick up on all those things.
So Rick Mears, he runs in third place, just behind Eddie Cheever. Bobby Rahal is still the leader of the run. 120 laps, 120 miles of the 200-mile scheduled distance now complete. The tactics soon will begin to play. 127th lap, Paul Tracy makes a stop. Several cars have made stops under the green flag here, though not the leader Rahal nor second place Rick Mears, but the other Penske car with Paul Tracy at the wheel, in and out of the pits. Routine stop for him. And look at Rick Mears as he continues to fight for second place with Cheever, and Rick goes back into second as they split, moving around the 19 car. An incredible path. Bachelor had to say, whoa, where are they going?
I'll bet Roger Penske is standing there thinking, this can't be happening. Eddie Cheever's never gone this fast. The big competition with one of my own lead cars here.
Of course, remember, in that Cheever car, the new Ford power there as well. Though what we're seeing now is a sandwich between the brand new Chevy engines and the brand new Ford engine. Now Cheever closing up on the back end of Scott Pruitt, who is not in the fight. He's 2 laps behind the lead.
Also, remember the inter-team rivalry between Mears and Fittipaldi. Fittipaldi on the right side of your screen, now moving up to do his battle with Eddie Cheever. Of course, it took Rick many laps to get by. How quickly will Emerson get by him?
Bobby Rahal has led all the laps. Can he go all the way? Boy, that would be an interesting question.
Paul, he's really fast today, and as the race has gone on, he's really not slowed down. Some of the cars, as the track gets slippery, obviously don't handle as well. Bobby seems to have no problem with that. He works the traffic good, and he just goes right on down the road.
They continue to pound on Eddie Cheever.
Well,
now it's Emerson Fittipaldi. And
he tried move number 1 down low in turn 1, and that didn't work. Now he'll probably try something else next.
Cheever's going to say, when am I going to get rid of these Penske cars? They're all over. Here's a question for you. Bobby Rahal has led all 131 laps thus far. When was the last time that a driver led on an oval start to finish? And who was it, Bobby? You have any idea?
Well, I couldn't tell you that.
Was you.
It better not have been Bobby.
It was Bobby.
Well, I had a good day then, I can tell you that.
Bobby Unser right here. And Mears now begins to close down on Bobby Rahal. So maybe Rahal won't lead quite all the way.
No, I think Mears was actually being held up by Cheever. Not unfairly. Eddie was driving a great race. But I think we're going to see Mears really move. And you see the relationship shot there. Rahal on the right of the screen, Mears on the left, perceptibly faster. He is closing in a hurry. He's down to 1.5 seconds back from 3 seconds in just 2 laps.
And traffic ahead of Rahal, though not slower traffic, because that's Michael that he's going under. Chris Mears on the scoring stand saying, whoa, what are they doing out here? And there you see Bobby Rahal out in front. And Rick Mears now has to handle up Michael. And if he can do so, he'll be back in contact with the leader of the race. Let's go pit side again in Jackaroo.
Well, the window is upon us where the front-running cars can now pit for one final pit stop. Now, in the leader's pit, Bobby Rahal, what they are going to do is they are going to add all the fuel they have left in the tank, and then they are going to change all 4 tires. That's the strategy right now. Conversely, in Eddie Cheever's pit, what they are going to do is they are going to do a gas and go. Right now, they're electing not to change tires. Let's see what the conditions are in Gary Gerald's end of the pits with Team Penske.
Well, we're told, Jack, that it could be at any time because that window opens. They figure that they can go about 65 to 67 laps. So from 135 on, the window is open for the final stop. They'll have to make a stop before the 164th lap. We just saw a black flag indication for Scott Brayton, who just flew by us on pit row. Call.
Brayton was running in 5th place before answering the black flag. They're looking for a possible fluid leak on the car, and of course you can't permit that, so the IndyCar officials all take a close look at the car and make sure there isn't a problem. One of the officials at the back of the car right now. Very costly for Scott. He's been in 14.9 seconds.
Remember that automobile racing has its equivalent of football's, 4th down situations or 3rd and long yardage. advantage, and this is one of them. What do you do with this last pit stop? And the great brains, the strategists, are down in the pits working that out now. And remember that Mo Nunn, you see Eddie Cheever right here on the left of your screen in the target car. Mo Nunn was the strategist that masterminded Arie Luyendyk's victory here last year. So Roger Penske, who one thinks perhaps of the great tactician and strategist of IndyCar racing, has a real rival just down pit lane, and they're both thinking hard right now.
Well, you can see that Emerson Fittipaldi has handled up Eddie Cheever and moved into third place. So the Penske cars continue to fight with one another for second and third, while Bobby Rahal is 2.5 seconds out in front of the second place car of Rick Mears. There's Fittipaldi running in third place.
It's funny that this year we've made so much of the new engines, the new chassis. Everybody seems to have something new, but Bobby Rahal has a, in effect, stock low.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Whoa. Look at him dial down the inside
And
under Scott Brayton. Unbelievable.
There's one of those deals where
because you see Cheever take advantage of that situation.
There's one of those deals where you got down there and you got caught there and you couldn't get out. He didn't want to be there after a little while, Paul.
Now it got real narrow after a little while.
Boy, did it get narrow. I thought they were going to go clear to the infield for a while there.
You know, one of the great hobbies that has grown out of IndyCar racing is all the people who sit up in the stands with scanner radios and listen to the conversation between the drivers and their pits. Can you imagine what Fittipaldi was saying as he went into that one?
Maybe he didn't say it in English.
Yeah.
Let's hope. He speaks 5 languages, by the way.
Let's hope not. Jack Carute, you have something?
Well, Paul, how quick the strategies can change, as Sam Posey alluded to. Now the thinking in the Ganassi pit is they're going to have to take on tires. You know why? All of a sudden, in 3 laps, the car has gone completely loose. Cheever says he's having a difficult time just holding on. Let's go to Gary Gerald.
Jack, you talk about the flukes that happen. Here's one for Scott Brayton. We mentioned the black flag. This tear-off on the visor of his helmet from somebody else's helmet got caught in his radiator. Temperature went to 110 degrees Celsius, was overheating. That was the fluid that was leaking. They came in, got the tear-off out of there, refueled, retired the car. He needs no more stops. Temperature's coming down. He's good now, they hope, till the rest of the race.
Oh, so that piece of clear plastic blocked the radiator. The temperature went up. The engine temperature went up, so it starts spraying a little fluid into the overflow, and that's what they say is vapor. As soon as you yank that out of the way, everything's perfect.
And what we usually see is the wrappers from the hot dogs and the hamburgers that go into the radiator. This time it was the shield from another driver's helmet, Paul.
So Bobby Rahal continues his lead. Rick Mears runs in second, Fittipaldi third. Eddie Cheever is now back to 4th place. Down 2 laps is Scott Brayton and Al Unser Jr. We'll be back after this message and a word from our ABC station. Looking down on the Valvoline 200 at Phoenix from the Goodyear blimp, lazily floating overhead. I like the new paint job. Brand new name, the Airship Eagle. Been providing the aerial shots of this race, and it gives you some good idea of exactly where the cars are on the track. As the Eagle drifts off, there's the shot from high above. And what you are seeing is Bobby Rahal continuing to lead here, but Rick Mears is right there, just behind Rahal. In 3rd place is Fittipaldi, who in traffic has fallen back a bit and now runs 8 seconds behind the leader. So the contest on the track is this one, with Rick Mears running in 2nd place. A summary of Rick.
You know, the traffic makes all the difference in the world right now, Paul.
That fastest lap there, by the way, Bobby, 163.7 is the fastest lap thus far in the race.
Yeah, but that's exactly right. It's the fast lap of all, but, you know, it's amazing. Just a little bit of difference the traffic is making from the cars running so close to the same speed.
Now take a look at this. The barrier is broken at Indianapolis. On the top there, that's unofficial. Roberto Guerrero just cracked 230, but it doesn't count until you see it on the first day of time trials at Indianapolis here on ABC.
That's an 80-mile-an-hour gain in 30 years, and I estimate, having done a little math, that the 300-mile-an-hour barrier would be broken in the year 2015. See if I'm right. I hope I'm around.
I'll be around. Remember. Let's go down pit side and Gary.
Well, we're waiting in the Penske pit. We're told that Rick Mears, if it stays green, will pit on lap 165. Emerson Fittipaldi on 166. We're nearing that point. It'll be the moment of truth for these guys who wait so patiently for the 2 or 3 opportunities in a race to try to win it for their driver. Let's go to Jack Arute.
Well, Gary, that seems to be the same thinking here for your leader, Bobby Rahal, and also for Eddie Cheever. In fact, you're looking at Eddie Cheever's fuel reading right now. You see where it says fuel left? He has 7.21 United States gallons of methanol still on board his car. Now, their target is 1.7 miles per gallon, so he's looking right at 166. That also, guys, is why you don't hear these fellows telling you as much anymore about, well, we're going to pit between 166 or 170. They've got it right down precisely now with this computerization.
159 laps, or 159 miles of the 200-mile scheduled distance is complete. Rick Mears has dropped back just a little bit. He's now 4 seconds behind Bobby Rahal. No one else in direct contact on the circuit. Rahal has been unstoppable. Brand new team. He is also a team owner with the car, and here is Rick Mears heading down into the pits for what is the last stop. Gary Gerald.
And Rick hits the target. No change on the front nose wing. It's tires and fuel for this final stop. They've had excellent stops earlier, both under 13 seconds. We'll see what this one translates to now. Richard Buck waving him off. We've got 12.8 here, Paul.
Exactly right, Gary Gerald. Right at 12 seconds, our clock. And Rick Mears lights the tires almost before he was off the jacks and heads out.
Well, you can kind of see the personality of the new car. He was slowing down as the car was getting light on fuel, Paul. Bobby Rahal was getting away from him like probably 30 car lengths just before Rick came in, as opposed to probably between 4 and 10 car lengths before. So that car isn't doing as well on a light load.
And boy, take a look at this. Bobby Rahal is right behind Eddie Cheever, who is the 3rd place car. So Rahal has now overcome everyone in the field except for 2nd and 3rd. And Rahal is due in any time now. Rahal around Cheever. Cheever's now a lap back.
Rahal's wife, Debbie, is 7 months pregnant with her 2nd kid. They adopted 2 kids, and so they're going to have a menagerie there at the Rahal home of 4 children. Congratulations to them for that.
Believe me, I've seen the home in Ohio there.
They can fit them in.
Plenty of room. Plenty of room.
And anyway, Bobby is playing golf outside, so I don't think he's aware of what's going on inside.
Well, they are ready in Rahal's pit. Some final conversation. You may recognize some of these faces. That's the old Patrick Racing team. So many grand successes under the Patrick colors. And then Bobby Rahal bought the team from Pat. Pat said he finally had about as much as he can handle and wants to watch a little bit.
You know, Rahal's glory years in this sport were with True Sports back in the middle 1980s when he ran as a 1-car team. When he joined the Gallus team, a great team, but it was a 2-car team with Al Unser Jr. He didn't seem to do as well. Here's Emerson.
2nd place, Emerson Fittipaldi and Gary.
Boy, he locked it up and he slid through the pit box. Now the engine has died. They've had to back the car up so that the fueling hose can be coupled. They're trying to get it refired as they change the rubber. Now they still haven't got the starter over the wall. This is a disastrous stop for Emerson Fittipaldi, Paul.
You got a glimpse of Scott Brayton, who had a quick spin. That brings out the yellow while the leader, Bobby Rahal, is in the pits. Jack.
A normal run-of-the-mill pit stop for Bobby Rahal. He paused for approximately 1.2 seconds longer than he would have had to, simply to take on all the fuel that they could get.
So everything is on board. We are under yellow. You got a little glimpse of Scott Brayton in a slide. He corrected. Doesn't look like he touched anything, but they brought the yellow out anyway. Now, Fittipaldi's pit, just to maybe clarify some of that, is one of those. This is mostly asphalt up and down the pit road here at Phoenix, but his is one that has a concrete surface, and it has always appeared as if it's a little bit dusty, and Fittipaldi hit that surface and slid a little bit forward.
It has a lot of floor dry on it, Paul, and he just couldn't help it. Plus, it's rough there. But that floor dry because somebody's been leaking a lot of oil down there. He hit it, just slid. Now, the question is he was on the air hose, which is a penalty. Does Wally Dallenbeck call it as a penalty because they pushed it backwards off of it? Is he going to have to do a stop and go, or is he okay linked in with all the other problems that he had?
Well, he's got a terrible penalty already. 26 seconds in the pits, and he's a lap behind. The Dick Simon organization now taking a look at Scott Brayton's car and finally sends him out after the spin. Of course, all those tires would have been flattened. He spun that car around on him, 1,550-pound car dry. Can't spin around too much without putting a nice flat side on the tires. How did it look from a driver's point of view when Scott got in trouble and put this yellow flag out? Let's take a look at the driver's summary first. And here's the situation. They're on board with Scott just a couple of laps ago.
Down into turn 1. Coming out of turn 1.
Got high. Whoa.
He locked him up, but he did not stall it. Look at that.
But it's amazing. See how far he went, completely through turn 2, spinning, didn't hit anything. Got to be the luckiest guy of the day.
He did a nice job, though.
Rick Mears very slowly coming down in the pits, Gary Gerald.
Great concern here. The engine is running, but it's misfiring. Now he gets it, blipping it, and it's shut off, and they think it may be an electrical problem. Richard Buck and the crew quickly pulling the cowling off. They're going to go in there and try to change the electronics.
All right, so Rick Mears now with a non-routine and a very long stop. We are still under yellow. 170 miles are complete. Back at Phoenix as the green flag comes out. Once again, Bobby Rahal now being chased by Eddie Cheever. But Cheever is well back. Rahal leading this race, and we've got trouble. 2 cars against the wall. That's Scott Pruitt down low. And Jim Vassar up against the wall. Pruitt is still under power.
Pruitt's going to keep his going. He's going to circle back around. Paul, that was a good, ingenious thing he did.
Boy, great piece of driving. Here it is again. As watch Jim Vassar, the number 47 car, mostly white. The right corner of your screen. Here he comes. He's already sideways, about halfway through the corner. And Pruitt spins the car to keep from getting into Vassar. Boy, there's a brilliant piece of driving.
Pruitt did really a good job. He was so close to being involved into a serious wreck. Look at him go in between. Now, that's luck right there. But he kept the engine running, and he had some smarts to go ahead and make a 360 and come around.
And also by doing that, he turned for the asphalt, which helped him get back on the track. Well, there's Jim Vassar's car. Let's go to Gary Gerald.
And we're watching the crew, Paul, as they're concerned, obviously wanting to know what the situation is. A pair of IndyCar officials been over there clarifying the situation. Jim Hayhoe has pulled one side of the headset off. Mike Hull and the rest of the crew just patiently waiting as the rest of the field circles under yellow. They want to know if their driver is all right and whether or not he's going to be able to continue.
Well, also in all of this mix, Rick Mears came into the pits. You saw that. He had a problem. They worked on the problem, got it started, and got the car going again. Rick made a lap without the cowling on the car, but now Rick is back into the pits. The cowling is off the car again, taking advantage of this yellow. Now let's go back to that crash that started this situation. First contact with the wall of the race from Scott Pruitt's point of view with his onboard camera. Here he is on the main stretch, makes that turn down into turn 1.
And that's Vassar right in front of him there, the white car. There's Vassar losing it. Oh, boy, was that a good move by Pruitt, because instinctively another lesser driver might have tried to go around the outside of Vassar. Pruitt went down under him instead, and it worked out.
And it wasn't just that. You saw that as he pitched it around, he knew he had to do that to scrub the speed off. He checked his left side, saw another car there, recorrected forward, let that car come past, and then took it all the way down.
Look at those other cars that were going by on his left. Now, he was really caught in a
Watch his hands now.
Yeah.
This is just really incredible.
Vassar's right in front, right there. He got sideways.
Boy.
Now he shoots right across, hits the wall. Look at Scott. Now look at the cars go by. The Marlboro car, Bobby Rahal. Look at him going by.
Yeah.
Now he's on the grass. Now remember, the turning radius of these cars is not sharp enough to have turned to the right and go around without running in the cement wall. He turns to the left, which he's doing there, goes completely around. Good thinking all the way.
Boy, give him the move of the year thus far. That was a brilliant piece of avoidance. Scott Pruitt,
See,
nice piece of
That's
driving.
where experience really tells, and intelligence, because right at that split second right there, instinct would have made him go right to try to get around Vassar, but he knew it was smarter to go left.
All right, the Rick Mears situation. Gary Gerald?
Oh, they're troubleshooting on the run, one lap at a time. They've changed the alternator box, they've changed the battery, they've toggled the other electronic connections. They've got a gremlin somewhere. Each time they send him out, they don't know if they've got the problem conquered. He's back on course now.
So Rick Mears, who appeared to be in the fight for this thing, now struggles. Have we said there is a new player in IndyCar racing this year, and Jack Arute takes a closer look at the difference between the Ford and Chevy's new engine.
Over the last 2.5 seasons, the dominant engine in IndyCar competition has been the Chevrolet Indy V8. Now this year, there are two versions to that engine. The old style, now known as the Chevrolet A engine, and this new style, known as the Chevrolet B. Now the B engine has been resized with aerodynamics in mind and reworked beneath these cam covers to increase horsepower and RPM. Ford's entry into the IndyCar engine wars is a brand new Ford Cosworth XB, completely redesigned from the ground up with an emphasis not only upon horsepower, but a small package with aerodynamics in mind. Now here's where they've made many of the changes. First, in the plenum area, it's smaller, and it's also 5 inches shorter overall than its predecessor, the Cosworth DFS. Now, they've also reworked the area beneath these cam covers to produce more horsepower and higher RPM. Now, the Chevys have already been proven through years of experience as being a reliable engine, but over 3,000 miles of preseason testing have assured Ford engineers and Ford drivers that these engines can go the distance as well.
But there is a nice array of engines at the front of the field. Speaking of Bobby Unser's suggestion of engine wars, Bobby Rahal leads it in last year's Chevy engine, Eddie Cheever in this year's new Ford Cosworth XB, and then Emerson Fittipaldi is third with the new Chevy engine, Bobby.
Boy, it's a big mixture, but it's early in the season. We're going to see a lot of things happen before this season's over.
And of course, the stage is set now. We're just 22 miles from the finish. After 175 laps, Bobby Rahal once again leading all the way. Can he make it the final laps to the finish? Eddie Cheever will be lined up several cars behind him as they come back to green. About 6 cars separate Cheever from Rahal, and Cheever will try to close that distance. Emerson Fittipaldi and Rick Mears at the same time are both a lap behind the leader and will do everything that they can to get back on the lead lap. Jack Arute, you have an update?
Well, Paul, what they've radioed to Eddie Cheever is no problem with fuel. Ganassi says we can go all the way to Pittsburgh with what you've got on board now. And they said go back to full bore 6th gear. Let's go after it.
Not nearly that far. They only have to make it about to Scottsdale, 22 miles between the checkered flag. And right now, as Bobby Rahal acknowledges the green flag of Nick Finoro and hits the throttle down. Now the Penske cars will try to get around Rahal, get back on the lead lap, hoping for yet another yellow that would allow them to close up. At the same time, Eddie Cheever has some traffic to handle up, and Cheever will try to cut his way through traffic so that he can do battle with Bobby Rahal.
You can see that Emerson Fittipaldi right behind the number 5 car is pressing hard. He needs to get by Rahal because of coming around getting a full lap back. But Paul, he won't do it unless Rahal falters for some reason.
There is Cheever as he moves his way up. He just came alongside and passed Danny Sullivan. He's going to try to carve his way up through this field while Rahal is going to try to put as much distance as possible as he can.
Eddie Cheever's the guy that needs a star for the day. He's the guy that theoretically just can't do ovals very well, and he has been brilliant all day. He's been almost no mistakes. We haven't seen any mistakes that he makes. He's very fast all the time.
But the IndyCar officials may have caught one because the report now is that he passed the car under yellow coming back to the green. That's why he's turning down into the pits. He's been black flagged for a stop-and-go penalty. So Eddie Cheever's near-perfect day is in serious trouble now.
Gosh, I don't even call that a mistake. I call that being aggressive.
I knew that you view it that way, Bobby. You viewed it that way before.
He gambled and lost.
So Cheever back into the fight, but he will fall well behind Bobby Rahal in doing so. So now we move to the closing minutes of this race. Eddie Cheever answers the black flag, a stop-and-go penalty, and Bobby Rahal continues to dominate. Still trying to hold on to 4th, just came down the main straightaway with the engine popping and slowing down and is on his way into the pits. Bobby Rahal is still the leader of the race with Eddie Cheever running in 2nd place, and they are right together on the track. Cheever, because of the stop and go, has lost almost a full lap, and Rahal is right behind him and climbing all over him, trying to get around and to put him a lap down. Cheever is certainly well aware that Rahal is there. Emerson Fittipaldi runs in 3rd. and Paul Tracy runs in fourth. Now, don't forget, as soon as this race is over, the festivities crank up in Long Beach, California for next Sunday's running of the Toyota Grand Prix of Long Beach. Can, in fact, Al Unser Jr. do it again? We'll have live coverage at 4 o'clock Eastern, 3 o'clock Central and Pacific next Sunday. We'll see some interesting changes in the course out there. They expect a record crowd, but there are some great tickets still available. I talked to Chris Pook, the promoter at Long Beach, just before the start of the race. He's really pumped up and ready for a great weekend there.
Well, Al Unser Jr., who has been so successful at Long Beach the last few years, you're riding with him right now, has moved all the way up to fifth here. He had a terrible start. He was mired back in 11th and 12th place, but he has moved up steadily. How good will that car be next week? We don't know. That's a look at it from Scott Brayton's car. Al Unser Jr. there on the left of the screen, as seen from Scott Brayton's car. Good stuff.
Boy, that really shows you what racing is all about, how it looks to the drivers. That camera work is fantastic.
Al Unser Jr. playing a very smart race. Look at these two onboard camera cars fight with one another. Not a battle at the front, but a battle for fifth place between Brayton and Unser Jr.
No, and it's symptomatic of how much better Al Jr. is running now than he was earlier. Remember, Brayton was up in second and third. Now Al Jr. has come up and has challenged him. So these two men, Brayton has fallen down on the list, and Al Unser has come up.
Nice view there for a second of that brand new Galmer chassis in the hands of Al Unser Jr. Gary Gerald, do you have an update on Rick?
Well, the struggle continues, Paul. They've determined that whatever the gremlin or the problem is internally, it's draining the batteries. They're on their third set of batteries. They think that this may be enough to get them to the end of the race, but it drains the power of the battery. The car then shuts down. That's why he's been in and out of the pit so many times.
Bobby Rahal still dominating now with just 5 miles to go. We continue to watch the battle between Unser Jr. and Scott Brayton.
It shows you how many different lines the little Al is trying to get around Scott. It shows you an idea how the drivers think with this type of camera work.
Bobby Rahal, of course, there you see him in that black and gold car. Lost the championship narrowly to Michael Andretti last year. And it was a tense fight the entire way. Suddenly, this year, on a new team, he finds himself with a convincing lead in just the second race of the year. What can be going through his mind? I think he is going to be very happy, not just with today's race, but with the whole way this team has gelled, and the fact that he, who is very determined, very single-minded guy, is now in charge of his own team, a single-car team. I think you're going to see him be a huge factor this year.
Carl Hogan, co-owner on that team, very racy guy as well. He really loves, especially the Indy cars.
Bobby Rahal's really acting smart. For example, he just let Emerson Fittipaldi go a little while ago. He let Eddie Chiva get away from him. Even though they get back on the same lap, he's not worried. There's only a few laps left. That is being a smart driver.
In the last 11 races at Phoenix, 10 different drivers have won. Only Rick Mears has won twice. Bobby Rahal has won this race before. He may be the only other person soon to have won this race twice in the last 11 years. Quite an achievement.
Got a glimpse here of Chip Ganassi as we come onto the white flag lap. Chip watching Eddie Cheever, his driver, but Chip is a full 22 seconds behind as the white flag comes out for Bobby Rahal. And Bobby Rahal is about to go into the records book with a flag-to-flag win in the Valvoline 200, his 21st career win, and the first win for his brand new team. Chip Ganassi's car with Eddie Cheever at the wheel will finish in second place, the first time he's been in the top 5 on an oval. Carl Hogan, well, he's done it. Rahal takes a 1-point lead over Fittipaldi now in PPG standings.
Well, here we go, another eventful IndyCar race. Gee whiz, there's always something happens when these IndyCars get around. Have a look at the results, because there's a couple of pleasing ones here from my point of view. Bobby Rahal took the gamble to buy into a team, become owner, driver, whatever. He's on the winner's podium. He'd be happy with that. Eddie Cheever, so wild and woolly in Australia, out of Formula One, back into IndyCars. And Emerson, well, he's always consistent.
Yeah, and his teammate, Paul Tracy, he's the protege for Penske. Penske's slowly dragging him in as a full-time guy. So there's 2 Penske's cars in the top 6, 3rd and 4th. Al Unser Jr. in 5th in his own car, his own design. Well, actually not his own design, but he put money into that himself. And John Andretti bringing up 6th place.
Yeah, won the first race here, of course, on the Gold Coast. 2 years ago. All right, the next race comes out of Long Beach in California. That's the 14th of April, 12:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. But check your local guides. The big sports, they just keep happening here on Nine. And believe you me, over the last 6 months, you've seen sports from all over the world. The US Masters Golf, that's the biggie from Augusta, Georgia. Coverage commences Friday, the 10th of April, 6 o'clock in the morning Eastern Standard Time. But again, check your guides all around Australia. And of course, our coverage of Eastern Creek commences on Friday, Saturday and Sunday, the Australian Motorcycle Grand Prix. Mick Doohan, sensational he was in Japan in the wet.
Fantastic. A real shame that Wayne's not going to be there. My heart really does go out to him. It'll be a great event. It always is. It's a circuit that produces fairly good, close racing. I think I'm looking really forward to seeing Beattie on Wayne's bike.
Yep.
I think that's a real one-in-a-lifetime chance for him. He's on a Pucker Works 500 bike in front of a home crowd. Great opportunity for him.
And Wayne Gardner will join us for the coverage with Kenny Sutcliffe at Eastern Creek. So, plenty of sport in front of you this week. Hope you've enjoyed tonight's big coverage of motorsport. We'll see you next time round. Bye now.